Hello and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. We are back for our next guest. We have on with us someone I was so excited to hear. He accepted the invitation for interview. He's doing great work throughout California, especially. I've seen him working with different groups relating to none other than Islam. We have today with us Paul Sutliff. He's working on a great project. It's called Civilian Jihad Awareness. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. I was reading a little bit more about you and your work because I've heard really strong things about what you're doing and trying to bring some clarity to the hot issue of Islam in America. And this idea of moderate Muslims keeps coming up, and nobody wants to talk about some of the issues that you're discussing and training and educating people on. And I'm just so glad you are talking about these things. What inspired you to get involved in exposing the truths about Islam?
I graduated from Nazareth College of Rochester, and at Nazareth College, I got my master's in education. I'm now a special education teacher, have been for many years. But I was also involved politically in a group called the 912 group. And one day, one of the people comes up, which lady who became a leader later on, name's Helen, said to me, "Paul, did you know Nazareth College took $500,000 from a group called the Triple IT, International Institute of Islamic Thought?" And I'm thinking, know that name.
Really?
I've heard it before someplace. And by this point, I'm already a published author in special education. And I'm a research writer type thing in that field. So I do a little bit of research. People at this point, people work. If you're a teacher in the building and you're doing graduate program and you have problems finding something, you come to me.
Right,
I had 1,000 staff in my building, and that's what they were doing. So I spend about a half hour worth of research, and I learned that Triple IT is the guys that I think it's ABC wanted. They wanted an interview with Bin Laden. They went to Triple IT, and they took them straight to Bin Laden. Scary. Then I learned
it's very real. I mean, it's beyond scary. It's very real. I mean, that's real. I think part of it is, on our show here, we talk to the candidates. We're talking to patriots who are making impact in their communities across the state and across the nation. We don't like bloated, inflated. We like reality. We want to know the truth, and that's very real. This is an organization that has ties to mass extremists.
Okay, but it's not only Al Qaeda. This is where it gets scary. There was a guy who was the vice president of it, who was basically, according to David Galbitz, he was basically the Masul of the Muslim Mafia, which is also known as the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
And he was the vice president of Triple IT. His name was Jamal Barzinji. Now, he died recently, and there's not exactly clear about who took over, but there's a lot of thoughts that Nihad Awad is now the head of the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't know if he is or not. I don't have any evidence one way or the other at this point. But that's what some of the thoughts are. But this organization gave $500,000 to Triple IT. Triple IT gave $500,000 to Nazareth College. So I wrote to the president of the college, and the president of the college ignored me. Okay, so let me tell you, before then, I've always got my calls answered calls, emails, whatever, within 24 hours. Why? Because I was a graduate assistant there. Right. Why? Because I was one of the heads of the Honor Society, Capital Delta Pi Honor Society out there. All right, I did a lot of stuff.
Right.
But ignore me. So I took my letter. After a week, I took my letter and I posted it in a Nazareth College alumni forum. Mm-hmm. And they decided to blacklist me.
Wow.
So I got blacklisted specifically for asking questions. Which
isn't uncommon as we're learning.
What's wrong with asking
more
questions?
And more.
told us the Socratic method. I mean, I'm a teaching college. You're told the Socratic method is one of the best things to do. I'm asking questions. Why would you take money from somebody you know that's affiliated with terrorism? Later on, I wrote to the historical the person in charge of history department there, and I blamed her for Nazareth College taking the money. Her excuse was, they're not doing anything bad anymore. Oh, so you were aware of all this.
So you knew who you took money from and
Yes.
what they were doing and who they were connected with, and decided because we need the money and want the money, we can go ahead and do this. So that was kind of your first exposure to touching on something that maybe needed a little bit more light brought to it.
Ryan Morrow read something I wrote about this and encouraged me to continue. And because of Ryan Morrow's encouragement, I wrote my first book. Just finished my third a little while ago. And now I've got another big project I'm working on, which is going to expose an AP world history textbook, being an Islamist textbook, and possibly promoting terrorism in the textbook, which is distributed throughout the world, not just the United States and Canada.
Wow, wow. Well, you know, that's the best way for them to recruit and also, you know, indoctrinate in terms of our future. I mean, it lays out the roadmap in the minds of man or young men and women. Now, you've gone to some Republican clubs I've seen recently and spoke to the people there. What is your hope? What is your drive to be able to impact these individuals and send them out better educated? Or, I mean, what are you really trying to accomplish?
My immediate goal is to wake people up. There is a war declared against Western society, and it's accomplished through a couple of different things. One is the hijra, which is the Muslim migration for the purpose of jihad.
Absolutely, that's
actually happened.
That's something that I think people are ignoring, is that this isn't just mass migration as a result of war. This is tactical. War is just an excuse. Conflict is just an excuse to invade other nations and wreak havoc on the women, men, and children.
When you take a look at Denmark and Sweden are slated right now, are predicted to become Muslim by 2050. They will no longer be European type countries by 2050. Okay, wow. Denmark may be gone before that. So, unless they start doing something, deporting is what I'm talking about. Unless they start deporting, they're in trouble.
Right. Germany too. I mean, they're pretty far gone in terms of what I've seen on the media. Now, where do you see Islam here in America? To me, and I'm just a layperson. This is not my specialty. But to me, as a layperson, it almost seems like they're trying to systematically, through the freedom of religion, through policy, drive us to a place where we're accepting of Sharia and other things. Is this something that you're seeing happening? I mean, there's what, less than 3% Muslims here in the United States.
You're asking, the way you're forming this is perfect. Yes, they do use our laws to manufacture things for themselves. One of the things that they have done, which is kind of scary, is they use the concept that Islam is a religion. However, it is not. It is a political animal. It is a political entity. And they will even tell you it's not just a religion. It's in a complete way of life. And so they're the only, quote, religion out there that has laws for the entire world to follow. Not just. So that disqualifies them as a religion based on comparing them to all other religions.
Well, they also have a war component, don't they, to them?
Yes.
I mean, yes. So that kind of sets them apart from religion. As far as where I'm standing as a layperson, it takes it one step further, and it's very scary and very real for myself and my family, and for our republic, obviously. But going back to what you were going to explain, I mean, they're basically incentivizing and trying to adopt policies that benefit themselves.
This happens throughout the United States, and we foolishly have been accepting this. And I when I started my last book, I started a list of my stupidity. Why didn't I begin to become aware when this happened, when that happened? Why didn't I have any interest? My background is religion and philosophy. I studied to be a pastor when I was doing my bachelor's. So I have a unique background where I did religion and philosophy. Then I took education and special education. So I'm in a field where they don't want religion, but I get a chance to talk about, because I work in global studies, I get to talk about religion to ninth graders. What does that mean? I get to talk about different aspects of every religion. That's cool. All right, that's exciting to do. I love teaching kids. But what we're not teaching them is what I'm discovering. What we have totally ignored after I started looking at what Islam really teaches just blows my mind. Because when I started looking into the history and I started looking into what they actually teach, it's mind-numbing. I have a book. Unfortunately, it look reversed because I've got the picture on it.
That's okay.
It's called Reliance of the Traveler. And I recommend this book to everyone who has a serious interest in learning about Islam. So let's look up what it says about jihad. This is a translation of Sharia. It's a classic manual of Islamic sacred law. And this is just
an Islamic book. This is a book for people wanting to know more about Islam.
Yeah, and if you're a Muslim, you might have this on your shelf if you are not reading Arabic.
Right.
Most people don't read Arabic. Most Muslims don't read Arabic.
So this is like the a version of the Bible,
it's
so
law,
to speak.
so it's not Quran. It's the law.
But there are some versions that have definitions and.
But this isn't actually approved. Now remember, IIIT is the first group I said. They say this is a great translation. So the Muslim Brotherhood entity, IIIT, approves this translation. So let me just read a little bit for you. It says jihad. Etymologically, jihad means to war against non-Muslims, and it is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion, and it is the lesser jihad. As for the greater jihad, it is spiritual warfare against the lower self, which is why the Prophet said as he was returning from jihad, we have returned from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. The scriptural basis, now this is where it gets interesting. The scriptural basis for jihad prior to the scholarly consensus is such Quranic verses as, fighting is prescribed for you, Quran 2:216. Slay them wherever you find them, Quran 4:89. Fight the idolaters utterly, Quran 9:36. This goes on, and it gives hadiths and stuff, but there's no mention of the lesser jihad when they give these. So they're justifying jihad.
And for those people who are not familiar with what jihad is, could you please
read this again, right from there? This is their work. It's not mine. It says again, war against non-Muslims.
So as a whole, that encompasses an entire list. So back to what we were talking about, the definition of jihad and what we're seeing across Germany and Denmark, where they're literally, and for those people who don't want to hear anything graphic at this point, you might want to push pause or fast forward. But really, the rapes, the mental scars, the physical scars, the emotional scars on the women and people across these foreign nations, that's part of their war. Correct?
It's
their duty.
Yes. I was in France. I was in Paris, Berlin, and Stockholm 2 years ago as part of a fact-finding expedition on the Islamization of Europe. And what we saw, and I guess what kills, how much is attempted to be hidden at the same time as much as what's happening. The French government really doesn't care about its people. It's not like, it was kind of mind-blowing for me. Yes, this is happening. They only care, I'll tell you, the French government, what I learned This is why I thought Marie Le Pen is good, but I didn't think she'd get in just because the French government is only for the elite, and they don't really care about anybody else. Marie Le Pen was the opposite of that.
So is this about money, power, and control?
It is about power in France, and they don't really. Again, it's about promoting. We don't have. We might have a wealthy class. We might have different social economic statuses, but you don't have rights based on who you're born to. Basically, you don't have nobility here. In France, in some ways, they still do. And that was more evident when we were in the Ministry of the Interior than any place I've ever seen. I was kind of surprised. But that's part of the issue. They refuse to wake up to what's happening around them. It's scary. It is truly scary. The stuff that I can't even tell you all of what I saw there, but it just, in the interviews, we talked to different people. We actually went in Berlin. We went to I think it was Berlin. No, it was actually from District 19. District 19. We went to and they promoted hood to us. They promoted hood, a great thing, and a great. Many of us. There was about many of us. I think cannot remember the exact number. But Daniel Pipes was there, Dr. Ronnie Wexler, and a few other people that were just outstanding. We sent them to us. We had them promote the Muslim Brotherhood, thinking we had no clue who they were, and it was mind-numbing. The Ministry of the Interior in the Interior, France, Germany, the staff and told us the answers to one of my questions. I went to each one of the intelligence officials also in each one of these places. Who do you think is behind this mass migration? Is there an entity? They said absolutely. It is absolutely. Brother. I was like, what? I had a thought process that might be there, but in each case, they believe the Muslim Brotherhood is behind the promotion of the Hijra. Again, the Muslim Brotherhood's into a long-term change.
Right.
They believe in destroying us from within and by our own hands and the hands of the Muslims,
right.
Who they call themselves the believers. So that they would say, and that would finish off so that Allah's religion is made victorious. And that comes from the explanatory memorandum. But that is exactly their goal. It's long-term. They're not expecting an immediate takeover, but they expect an entire takeover.
Right.
And the Hijra is of it.
We think in terms of politics, we're so excited about, the upcoming 2018 elections. And, I'm already thinking 2022, and we're looking at, Trump 2020, 2024. I mean, we're talking about people. This goes well beyond I think the comprehension of a lot of Americans. They're thinking about right now how they can pay their bills, what they're going to, maybe they're thinking about their college education for their children or their future children, but they're not thinking about entire groups of people trying to take over our country from within. And it's happening right now as we speak.
It is. It's very, very real. Under Obama, there were several people appointed to positions of power. Now, what do I mean by that? They were appointed to positions of power over budgets, and it was done after he passed a bill early on in an executive order early on in his presidency to be able to appoint several positions without Senate approval.
Right.
And this became drastically important to understand that later on, by the time he's through it, he's about to go out of power, because the amount of people he appointed to positions that would normally get Senate approval, these people are still there today.
Right. Right.
And they are I mean, again, most likely members of the Muslim Brotherhood appointed, and they are in control of budgets and people. Yes.
But even like Valerie Jarrett, you bring up her ties and you bring up some individual ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, and people look at you like you're crazy. It's so out there that this could be the case.
If you're,
like
if you're
Huma.
50 years old or older, if you're 50 years or older, you know about the Iranian Revolution. You remember the hostage crisis.
Right.
And then what kind of right mind thinking has you putting an Iranian woman as one of the head people in the White House?
Right.
I'm sorry. That's a bit of insanity. If you don't think history repeats itself, I can't trust people. I'm saying not to be just because of their heritage. I mean, if you lived through the Cold War, how comfortable are you with yeah, it's exactly what it is. I mean, if you have connections, and her connections are verifiable. I mean, and then we can talk about Hillary's, her friends and their connections.
Right.
Mind numbing.
And no one is really talking about this. I mean, you talk about it, and it's like you say, you get blacklisted or what have you, And I think that the more we do talk about it amongst ourselves and Republican groups or conservative groups or church and faith groups, veterans groups, the better. That we talk and we get educated.
I mean, I get asked all the time, why don't I get in trouble for talking about these things? I says, well, the fun thing is you can't get fired for telling the truth. So when I talk about the connections and stuff, I have documented them all.
Right.
When I talk about them, I have documents to prove them. I get asked questions about, have you ever been, feared for your life? I'm like, no. I says, the only time I've ever been scared is when the federal government started following me after I exposed them for FEMA for giving money to Islamists. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was a big expose. It didn't get a lot of publicity because government doesn't want you to know this. They were giving, tens of thousands of dollars away to that.
So now, you have 3 books, and I don't mean to stop you, but, I want to actually dedicate a whole show and have you on here for an hour and let you talk about the detail. No, really, I believe that we really need to spend the time and get more equipped in the mind and have a better understanding of what's really going on in the Islamization of America, really. But you currently have 3 books out there. I want to make sure that the listeners, the people who are watching, know where they can find out more about you, about your work, about what you've discovered and what you share in those books, and have the opportunity to read them, because I believe that everybody needs to get educated. Can you tell us where they can find that information?
You can go to Amazon.com to get 2 of my books. One of them is no longer available on Amazon due to a problem with a publisher. Okay. And I have about 100 copies that you can get through my blog, which is Paul Sutliff, PaulSutliff.blogspot.com. And you can go there. I also have I'm starting online courses on the Muslim Brotherhood. I've created some, and if people are interested, I've got a teaser class. It's really cheap to begin with. There, I'm also about to do an expose on a textbook that is going to blow people's minds. So, watch out. I mean, next 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, at the least. This book is not necessarily a book, but this thing is coming out.
Right.
My books are Stealth Jihad Phase 2, Infiltrate American Colleges, Civilization Jihad, and the last one, What Social Studies Teachers Need to Know About Islam. I recommend the last one to every human being on the planet. The interesting piece is, where does it discuss religion?
Really?
It only discusses history. Because in order for me to get this in the hands of teachers,
right,
I had to leave religion out.
Right.
So leaving religion out, when you see what I put in this book, it will make you shocked to think, oh my God, what are we doing? Right. That we're not telling. And I've had people, I have to say, I have liberals read this stuff, and they're mind blown.
Right.
And
well, you take religion out, and it takes a lot of emotion out of it in terms of, misconceptions, preconceptions, all of these sorts of aspects. And so people are able to step back and think about things a bit more logically. And so that's probably one of the reasons why it's so valuable to maybe people who wouldn't otherwise think it could be. Now, I want to thank you so much, for being on the show. Again, we want to have you on another time so we can really get into this. People, we need you to go to Paul Sutliff's website to learn more about him and his work, his books, and educate yourselves on what's going on in your communities and out there in the United States of America and across the globe, really. Now is our time to share information. We have that ability with the internet. We need to educate everybody because otherwise we're in a really bad space for the future of our republic. Thank you so much, Paul Sutliff, for being on the Erin Cruz Show. God bless you. And keep up the good work.
Fight on, Erin. Fight on.
All right. God bless.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com.